Yeah, I think about death every day.
You feel that people want to kill you?
Every day, all day. It changed how I move.
Think about that every
everything.
day. Every day, it's real. That's how real it is. I think somebody's trying to kill me.
I know how it's gonna be when I die. It's gonna be no.
I feel like I'm dead.
But you're not.
I'm alive, but I'm dead.
Why do you say that? You feel like there's a part of you that died, or?
Yeah.
Some call it coincidence, others call it prophecy. But when you hear a rapper spit bars about their own funeral, and then actually end up in one, it stops feeling like metaphor real quick. Hip-hop has always been brutally honest. That's what makes it powerful. Rappers talk about the streets, the violence, the paranoia, the weight of knowing that any day could be your last. But for most artists, that's just storytelling, painting a picture, creating atmosphere. For the men on this list, it was something else entirely. These weren't just dark lyrics. These were warnings, confessions, premonitions spoken into a microphone and pressed onto wax for the whole world to hear, and nobody took them seriously, until it was too late. Today we're going through 10 rappers who, in their own words, on record, on camera, or in interviews, predicted their own deaths. And in every single case, the prediction came true. Stay with me, because some of these are going to send chills straight through you. Let's start with the most documented case in hip-hop history. Tupac Shakur practically wrote his own eulogy on wax, not once, not twice, but across an entire career's worth of music that reads like a man preparing the world for his absence. On If I Die Tonight, recorded in 1995, he rapped about enemies plotting his death and reaching a point of total acceptance. Not panic, not desperation, just calm acknowledgement that his time was coming. On Life Goes On, he described his own funeral in vivid, almost eerie detail. Pallbearers, crying homies, pouring out liquor in his memory. The whole ceremony laid out in bars before it ever happened. But Tupac didn't just say it in songs. He said it to cameras. He said it in interviews. He told reporters openly that he expected to die young.
I know how it's gonna be when I die. It's gonna be no noise. You're gonna hear people screaming. I'm fade out.
Not as a cry for help, not as a publicity stunt, but as a statement of fact. Like a man who had done the math on his own life and arrived at a number. In one of his most famous interviews, he said death was inevitable for someone living the life he lived.
The last time we were together, I was in LA. He saw a picture. It was my oldest daughter and my son. And when he came in the room, he looked and he said, "That's your kids?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, man, Smooth. Man, that's beautiful, man." He said, "You a great father, man." He said, "These kids is lucky, man." I said, "Nigga, you'll make a great father." And he was like, "Nah, I ain't gonna be no father." I said, "What you talking about?" He said, "Nigga, I ain't gonna be around long enough to have kids." I said, "How old are you?" He's like 23. He said, "Nigga, I'm telling you, I ain't gonna live past 25.
And rather than run from it, he decided to run toward his purpose while he still could. The urgency you hear in his music, the sheer volume of it, the speed at which he recorded, makes more sense when you understand that he believed every session could be his last. On September 7th, 1996, Tupac was shot 4 times in Las Vegas after attending the Mike Tyson vs. Bruce Seldon boxing match. He was rushed to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. He fought for 6 days. On September 13th, he died. He was 25 years old. The songs he left behind don't just sound like music. They sound like a will, written in rhyme, left for the world to find. 2. The Notorious B.I.G. Biggie Smalls announced his own death before he ever became famous. Think about that for a second. His debut album, the record that introduced him to the world, was called Ready to Die. Not as a shock tactic, not as edgy branding. Biggie lived in a world where death was a realistic outcome, and he put that truth front and center before his career even started.
Think about that every day. Every day, it's real. That's how real it is. I think somebody's trying to kill me. I'll be waking up paranoid. I'll be really scared. I'll just be paranoid. That's just the way I am.
But the deeper you go into that album, the more unsettling it gets. The closing track, Suicidal Thoughts, is arguably the darkest song in mainstream hip-hop history. Over a haunting beat, Biggie confesses every sin he ever committed, robberies, murders, betrayals, directly to God. The song ends with a single gunshot. No outro, no fade, just a bullet. Then there's You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You, a title that sounds like dark humor until you realize the man who wrote it was murdered before the album it appeared on was released. In interviews before his death, Biggie spoke openly about not trusting his security. He talked about feeling exposed at public events. He had survived violence growing up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, but fame brought a different kind of danger, one that was harder to predict and harder to avoid. He felt like a target he couldn't shake no matter how much money he made or how many people surrounded him. On March 9, 1997, Christopher Wallace, the Notorious B.I.G, was shot and killed in his SUV in Los Angeles, just hours after attending the Soul Train Music Awards. The killer was never caught. The case remains officially unsolved. He was 24 years old. His second album was titled Life After Death. It was completed before his murder and dropped just 16 days after he was killed. Nobody bought it thinking it would be that literal. 3. XXXTentacion. X was one of the most divisive figures in modern hip-hop, loved fiercely by his fans, condemned loudly by his critics, but even people who couldn't stand his music had to pause when they went back and listened after June of 2018. He was only 20 years old when he recorded Jocelyn Flores, a haunting, sparse tribute to a friend who had taken her own life. The track set the emotional tone for everything that followed. X was not afraid to go to dark places in his music. He lived there. On Before I Close My Eyes, he described the sensation of preparing to die lying still, accepting the end, letting go. On Sad, he asked who would care about him once he was gone. On Moonlight, on Revenge, across dozens of Lucy's and mixtape cuts, death followed him like a shadow he couldn't shake. But the moment that stops people cold is a YouTube video recorded in 2017, nearly a full year before his murder. X looked directly into the camera and said, "If I'm gonna die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my music means something."
Alright, let's say worst thing comes to worst, I die a tragic death or some and I'm not able to see out my dreams. I at least want to know that the kids perceived my message and were able to make something of themselves and able to take my message and use it and turn it into something positive and to at least have a good life. I at least, if I'm gonna die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy, or they found some sort of answers or resolve in my life.
He wasn't performing. His voice was quiet, direct, like a man who had genuinely thought about this and arrived somewhere on the other side of fear. On June 18, 2018, Jase Onfray, XXXTentacion, was shot and killed while sitting in his car outside RIVA Motorsports in Deerfield Beach, Florida. He had just made a large cash withdrawal, allegedly to donate to a family in need. 2 armed men approached the vehicle. One shot. He was pronounced dead shortly after. He was 20 years old. That YouTube video now has millions of views. People watch it like a transmission from the other side, because that's exactly what it is. 4. Juice WRLD. Jared Higgins, Juice WRLD, built his entire brand around 3 themes: heartbreak, drug addiction, and death. That was his lane. That was what connected him to a generation of young fans who felt those same things and had no words for them until he gave them some. But even within a genre built on dark themes, some of his lyrics cut uncomfortably close to his own reality. The most referenced example is a song called Legends, a tribute he recorded for XXXTentacion and Lil Peep, 2 artists who had died young. In the song, Juice WRLD rapped, "What's the 27 club? We ain't making it past 21. He was 21 years old when he died. Not 27, 21.
There's a line you recently said too that impacted a lot of people. We're not gonna make it till 21. You don't feel that way, do you?
I feel like everybody dying young, not foreshadowing anything. Well, it was X20, and how old was people when he died? Like 20, 21.
The exact age he named in a song mourning artists who didn't make it. On December 8, 2019, Juice WRLD arrived at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport aboard a private jet. Federal agents were waiting to search the aircraft. According to witnesses, Juice WRLD swallowed several Percocet pills in an apparent attempt to hide them from law enforcement. Shortly after landing, he suffered a seizure on the tarmac. He was rushed to Advocate Christ Medical Center and pronounced dead within hours. He was 21 years old. The line from Legends became one of the most referenced lyrical prophecies in hip-hop history almost overnight. Fans dug through his catalog for more, and they found plenty. Interview clips surfaced of him joking about dying young. Songs resurfaced with new weight. The whole body of work felt suddenly different. Not like entertainment, like documentation. 5. Pop Smoke. Basha Barakos, known to the world as Pop Smoke, was 20 years old and already sounding like a legend. His voice alone set him apart. Deep, commanding, unmistakable. New York drill hadn't heard anything like him since the genre was invented, and the city had claimed him as its own. But on a track called Paranoia, released just months before his death, Pop Smoke rapped about enemies watching his movements, about feeling hunted in a city he was supposed to own, about how quickly everything a man builds can be taken from him.
I'ma give like a message to my young niggas, you feel me? Like niggas like us coming where we come from, we can't afford to fuck up. They watching and they want us to. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We got all odds against us. Fake niggas be winning sometimes. So, you know what I'm saying? If you wanna succeed, you can't fuck up. You got no space for it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? We can't afford it. That's why I tell them, like,
he was not being dramatic. On February 19th, 2020, Pop Smoke was staying at a rented home in the Hollywood Hills area of Los Angeles. In the early hours of the morning, a group of armed men broke into the property. Pop Smoke was shot multiple times during the home invasion and was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. He was 20 years old. 4 teenagers were later arrested and charged in connection with the murder.
Yes, please, John. Thank you.
Sure. Today, as I, Corey Walker, stand before you in court today for sentencing for my unforgettable consequences. Even though the Jackson family isn't here in court today, I would like to sincerely apologize for my unforgivable actions. Although there's no apology that amounts to the taking of one's life, also
it emerged that the killers may have tracked his location through a social media post that inadvertently revealed the address of the house. His debut album, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, was released posthumously 4 months after his death. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. His paranoia, it turned out, was completely justified. Nipsey was different from every other name on this list. He wasn't rapping about dying. He was rapping about legacy, about building something that would outlast him, about being so deeply rooted in his community that even death couldn't erase what he had planted. But go back and listen now, really listen, and the urgency is unmistakable, like a man who sensed his window was closing and refused to waste a single day. On dedication, he rapped about putting in work as if every moment could be his last. On hustle and motivate, on grinding all my life, the message was consistent. I don't know how long I have, so I'm going to build until they stop me. In interviews, he spoke with a calm that sometimes unsettled the people around him. Not fearless, aware, there's a difference. He knew what Crenshaw could do to a man. He had seen it happen to people he loved, and he chose to stay anyway because leaving felt like abandonment, like betrayal. On March 31st, 2019, Ermia's Asgdom, Nipsey Hussle, was shot and killed outside the Marathon clothing store on Slauson Avenue in Los Angeles, the store he had built from nothing, in the neighborhood he had refused to abandon despite every opportunity to leave. The man who killed him was someone from the same community Nipsey had dedicated his life to uplifting. He died building, right up until the moment they took him out. 7. Gustav R. Lil Peep was 21 years old and already one of the most influential figures at the intersection of emo, punk rock, and hip-hop. He wore his pain openly, tattoos across his face, songs about depression, loneliness, and the seductive pull of substances that made the pain quieter. His music was a diary, and the diary had a recurring entry. On Star Shopping, one of his most beloved tracks, he rapped about accepting that he would die young, asking a girl to look at the stars when he was gone, because that's where she'd find him. On Awful Things, on Bent's Truck, across nearly his entire catalogue, Peep treated his own death as an inevitability rather than a fear.
Everything changes with time. Like, you can't predict where you're gonna be next year. You have no idea, you know what I mean? Like, there have been points, like, I've been in very, 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 very low points. Like, you know, shitty situations, horrible situations. And then my mom always tells me, like, time will heal everything, you know what I mean? And even if it takes...
He spoke openly about his drug use, particularly the combination of Xanax and other substances, in ways that alarmed the people around him. But he was 21 and successful, and the world was just beginning to pay attention. Nobody wanted to believe the songs were a roadmap. On November 15, 2017, Lil Peep was found unresponsive on his tour bus in Tucson, Arizona. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death was determined to be an accidental overdose of fentanyl and Xanax. He was 21 years old, the same age as Juice WRLD when he died, the same age Juice WRLD referenced in Legends, the song.
There's a line you recently said too that impacted a lot of people. We're not gonna make it till 21. You don't feel that way, do you?
I feel like everybody dying young, not foreshadowing anything. Well, it was X20, and how old was Peep when he died? Like 20.
Written to mourn Lil Peep himself. 8. Mac Miller. Malcolm McCormick Mac Miller spent the last chapter of his career making music that felt like therapy. His album Swimming, released just weeks before his death, was a meditation on survival, on staying afloat, on fighting back against the undertow. But beneath the hopeful framing, the water imagery ran dark. Tracks like Self-Care showed a man who understood he was in trouble and was genuinely trying to pull himself out. In interviews, Mac was candid about his struggles with substance abuse.
I had a drug problem, you know, for a long time. It wasn't just in music, but I definitely was going through a drug problem, and I think it was more my state of mind. So I was just pretty depressed, as everyone.
Even while successful?
Yeah, I think it started.
With success?
Yeah.
He didn't hide it. He talked about it, rapped about it, and tried to use his platform to process it honestly. Fans who followed his journey could hear the arc of a man getting closer to either breakthrough or breaking point. On September 7, 2018, Malcolm McCormick was found unresponsive at his home in Studio City, California. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death was an accidental overdose involving fentanyl, cocaine, and alcohol. He was 26 years old. The album Swimming suddenly sounded less like hope and more like goodbye, a man treading water as long as he could before the current finally won. Davon Bennett, King Von, was one of the most gifted street storytellers Chicago had ever produced. His narratives were cinematic, detailed, lived in. You didn't just hear his songs, you felt like you were watching them. And Von rapped about death, the way someone raps about something they've already made peace with. On Took Her to the O, on Crazy Story, across nearly everything he released, the threat of violence wasn't backdrop, it was the main character. He had lost close friends to the streets. He had survived situations that should have killed him. The music carried the weight of all of that. In interviews, Von spoke about life in O Block, one of Chicago's most dangerous blocks, with a frankness that made journalists uncomfortable. He wasn't glorifying it, he was reporting it, and he knew exactly what reporting from that place could cost a man.
It'd have been, I wish I never grew up in the projects. I wish a lot of shit. I wish my mama had some money when I was a lot of shit. If I could wish a lot of shit would be different, but it just happened like that. Like say, yo, your brother get killed or somebody get killed. It just happened like that. What you gonna do?
You know what's crazy?
On November 6, 2020, King Von was shot and killed outside a nightclub in Atlanta, Georgia, following an altercation. He was 26 years old. His posthumous album, Welcome to a Block, went to #1. Fans said listening to it felt like hearing a man narrate his own story right up to the final chapter. 10. Young Dolph. Adolph Thornton Jr., young Dolph, survived not 1, not 2, but 3 separate assassination attempts before the 4th one succeeded. The man had been shot at over 100 times across multiple incidents and walked away. It seemed like he was untouchable. His music reflected that energy. Dolph rapped with a confidence bordering on invincibility, paper route empire, independent money, no label telling him what to do or say. He was one of the most respected independent artists in the South. But the attempts kept coming, and in interviews in his later years, Dolph spoke about them with a weariness that went beyond bravado. He was tired of looking over his shoulder. He talked about wanting to focus on his family, his business, his legacy. The streets had been chasing him for years, and he knew that eventually, no amount of luck holds forever. On November 17, 2021, young Dolph was shot and killed inside Maker's Homemade Butter Cookies, a local bakery in Memphis, Tennessee, that he was known to frequent and support. 2 men walked in and opened fire. He was 36 years old, older than almost everyone else on this list, which somehow makes it hit even harder.
Hi guys, everything you see here is being made by me. Please, if you enjoy what I do here, please don't forget to subscribe. Yep.